I think we'll get going with an introduction by our interpreter, Gisela.
Yes. Gisela, we actually cannot hear you. Hang on. I go ahead and try now. I'm switching speakers. Nope.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Awesome. I think it was on my side. Sorry.
No worries.
Well, thank you for your commitment to language justice. We're going to be using simultaneous interpretation. So when I finish saying this in Spanish, we will turn on interpretation and you will see a globe icon on the bottom of your bar that says interpretation. If you're not fully bilingual, I ask that you select your preferred language. If you're going to be presenting or facilitating, please be aware of your speed, knowing that Spanish takes 20 to 25% longer than English. Hola, buenas tardes a todas las personas. Mi nombre es Gisela Escobedo y vamos a estar usando la interpretación simultánea para esta reunión por el compromiso a la justicia del lenguaje de los organizadores. Cuando termine de decir esto, vamos a aprender interpretación y usted va a ver un icono de un globo en la barra de abajo de su pantalla que dice interpretación. Si no es completamente bilingüe, te pido que selecciones tu idioma preferido, ya sea inglés o español. Y si vas a estar presentando o facilitando, sé consciente de tu velocidad. Muchas gracias. Thank you very much. You can go ahead and turn on interpretation.
Thank you, Gisela. So I'll call to order this work session for October 10th, 2022. The time is 6:06 p.m. and we have all council members present. First item on our agenda is the proposed 2023 budget for the general fund.
Right, am I on?
Not yet. I
No,
don't think so.
well,
You have to have the mic.
Okay, better. There we go. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. So to wrap up, for the most part, our budget work sessions for the 2023 budget, we are going to look tonight at the general fund. The general fund is our largest fund in the budget. It is where we budget for the vast majority of our operations and departmental operations. We, let me get a little bit here. It's, did I say largest department in the, or largest fund in our budget? And where we spend a lot of our concentration and time looking at the bottom line of our general fund and to see what the health of the general fund looks like. We spend, Teresa and I spend a considerable amount of time looking at our fund balances, making sure we're trending in the correct way, that we have healthy fund balances and that we can accommodate any of those kind of unforeseen things that come along in every budget year. So I think with that, I'm just going to kind of turn it over to Teresa to walk us through her budget memo that she's made on the general fund here. And then I'll follow up with some other things and then give council a good amount of time to ask some questions, because I know that there's a lot going on in the general fund, right?
All right. So we always have our ending fund balance that I always start off with. You'll notice this year it's a little bit different story, but with the ARPA monies coming in and the expenses that we're spending out, that's why the difference is happening. So I completely foresee that going back to being the same. So it's kind of one-time expenses that is doing that. But otherwise, I mean, I say that, but you have an $8 million fund balance. So, I don't think that the bank is going to come repo the cars or anything. So So going on to the next page, I always list any revenue changes from when we showed this back to you in August, because we've had another month of revenue. We're able to kind of look at things. Sales tax, I did bump it up 60,000 because I had it budgeted at where I projected us to end this year. And so I do think we will be higher next year. The property tax and specific ownership, we got our preliminary assessed valuation. We always get that on August 25th, so right after this meeting. So that was a little bit higher. So that's what those amounts are. Talking about court costs, fines, and surcharge, those three line items. I know when we presented to him, there was a question about, these are really going down because we could see the history. And so had some conversations with the chief and with Kathy and Devin, and kind of talked about, where, because obviously, and obviously the chief can speak more to this than me, but everything changed, with COVID, with policing, with everything. And so, so I think things are hopefully leveling out. So in that meeting, there was kind of a commitment that maybe we can kind of start moving that in the other direction. And so that's why I used the revenue we had brought in 2019 before everything had started. So that's what those amounts are. The other thing that we did is I went back and looked at the SRA reimburses the city for the services that they provide. Those percentages have not changed probably in 10 years. And so the SRA is getting that service. So what we changed is I changed the police department from reimbursing at 13.5% to 15%. So 1.5% increase. I changed the fire department from 8% to 10%, so a 2% increase. The one thing we did not have in there, we kind of reimbursed for our general government. And because we'd added the PIO, the public information officer, that wasn't in there. So we made sure to incorporate that, because the SRA does benefit from anything that can be done there. And then the other category that I increased was public works. That was only at 2%, and I increased it to 8% because I feel Randy and his crew are out there and they're checking things and they're letting people know it's, so I felt 2% was not really sufficient for the work that's getting done. So it wasn't, and also, I know you're not looking at the SRA right at this moment, but the SRA has a very healthy fund balance, and it just keeps increasing, and we don't really have a lot of expenses. I mean, reimbursing the city is our biggest expense. So I think it makes sense. The nice thing is if there was ever not money in there, if the tornado goes through and everybody is gone, we don't reimburse the city. We don't, everything changes. So I don't feel that we're committing the SRA to anything that they can't continue going forward. So that was a very long-winded revenue section.
But I just wanted to tag on.
Sorry.
No, it's fine, Teresa. I just want to tag on that a little bit. You touched on it. We wouldn't have considered this without the health of the SRA being so robust. We're seeing ample coverage on the debt service. We're seeing annual increases, almost double digits year over year as far as the performance of that center. So it's been healthy, and it's been building up these balances that I think it was good to build up those balances, but it's kind of again a revenue source that's kind of sitting there and has been for the last couple of years that we haven't tapped. And if it hadn't been performing so well over the past few years, I don't think this is something we would have considered. And even in considering it, I think you can see how modest that the increases were. Really, the most significant increase was the public works, and increasing that, which I would say at 2% was vastly under accounted for in the original estimates anyway. So I think it was time that we looked at that, and it was Teresa said, it's kind of one of those things we'd looked at every year, and we're like, maybe we did, but we'd never really done it. And this year it really made sense to go ahead and try and look at that. So that's all I wanted to say.
The other thing that I know is I think some of those were lower because when this first started, the SRA, there were some years that they didn't reimburse full. Like I know the PD, some years we put it at 8% because we couldn't, it wasn't going to work to reimburse it, but that's how it is. We have to keep the SRA healthy. And so that's, yeah. And if I remember right, we still, with the 2023 budget on the SRA general fund, I believe you'll still have a $1.2 million fund balance. And so, you know, you're still safe. Debt service is
Mhm.
still good. So I will shut up about revenues. Do you guys have any questions? All right, let's go on to the meat and potatoes. So general fund expense.
Oh, I have one more.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, Teresa. I know I'm just going to keep it. So on revenues, just kind of a comment with, just to make council aware of this. So we're looking, if you're looking at use tax and building permits, we looked at that and said, oh, are we going to be ready to bump that up, you know, this coming year? I don't think that we are. However, I think what we'll see is a very big bump of that in the next year when we see the Flying Saucer redevelop, which will be a massive, massive project. And see pretty significant use taxes come in through building permits. We anticipate on that. If we had been charging, or if we anticipated charging the Bonsai redevelopment use taxes on that, and what we are going to be recommending is that we rebate those to that affordable housing project. That would have been pretty significant. I know when I told Teresa that, I said, Teresa, we're rebating all those. She's like, what? No. Those are some big numbers. They would have been very big numbers. But just so that you know, we're on revenues, and those are the kind of discussions and thought process we go through as well. So I think what we'll anticipate is a nice little bump of use taxes, though, in the next budget year after this. And then again, I know we touched on this, but wanted to say that we, you know, it is reflective in here. We have seen marijuana taxes level off and kind of settle out. So we're not seeing those go, you know, for the last, well, every year since we've had it, they've been going like this. And what we're seeing this year is they're going to come up, and we're projecting that they'll kind of come down a little bit and level off. So that, I think, was the only revenue stuff I just wanted to mention that you hadn't already. Teresa touched on the biggies, but I just wanted to mention those as well. Thank you.
All right, so general fund expense, the assumptions for all departments, and this is pretty normal, what we always do. We always budget a 3% merit increase. That does not guarantee people 3%. Obviously, when they're going through the review process, they will determine if that is deserved or if it more is deserved. Right now, we have the health and dental insurance increase at 10%. I know they're kind of working on that. This always kind of happens where it's in tandem with negotiating that. So I think 10% should cover that for this year. And then going on down to the various departments, something that you'll see under administration is, it says we add an accounts payable licensing tech. There's a switch there. We had budgeted this year, a city clerk and a deputy city clerk. With Arlene's retirement, we're just keeping the city clerk, and we're recategorizing kind of Jenna's position back to what it was, is it was kind of under finance, and it's at accounts payable and business licenses and whatever else we need her to do. So
Other
so we
duties
gotta
as
find
assigned.
yeah. So
Other duties as assigned. Yeah.
right. So that's kind of, those two are kind of offsetting each other. We're just moving it back to where it was. What I did is, I know we're doing lots of different projects for ARPA, but I wanted to get the full 1.5 million. I just put it in one line item because, you know, we're going to spend it. And I kind of wanted to see also if we're going to need a budget amendment, which I think we will need when we get down to it. And then if we don't spend it this year, that's fine. Well, the money goes with the revenue, so we'll be good. We have the public information officer who is just going crazy and doing great things. And so we need to make sure she can keep doing those great things. And so she actually was able to add some individual line items so she can kind of track with what she's spending money on, what's working, that stuff. So I think that will be a help to her so that she'll know that. And so those are those line items that we added. Non-departmental, the liability insurance, we're not catching a break in this category. I think it's went up. This will be the third year that it's went up about 15 to 20,000. Reached out to CIRSA and got a yep. We didn't get much of a good response from them. It was just kind of quit wrecking cars and doing things.
No, yeah, their response was, well, this is what your claim history reflects. And we have had some cars, we've wrecked, it happens. So we've had some of that. We've had some other property damage things and things like, so it's our history. And so we're seeing that reflected a little bit in that we try and address those things. PD does all the training with all their officers constantly to try and minimize those types of things. We have a safety committee that meets several times a year and looks at, what other areas can we, hope to address or reduce our claim history on this. But sometimes you have good years and sometimes you have bad years. And the last 2 or 3 have not been the kindest to us on our liability side of things. So we continue to try and stress that though with staff and have training and look at what kind of we can do on the policy side for reducing those issues. Yes, but our insurer was not really cooperative. Let's put it that way. They have been in the past and we've worked with them and they are not a bad insurer. CIRSA does a great job with us, but they were like, nope, this is what your history says and this is what you're going to be at. And we're like, and they sent us the info. We were like, yep, you're right. So.
Yes. So yeah. So that was the big change in non-departmental. The city clerk, as I said, we're moving the deputy city clerk, moving it to administration. As far as looking at legislative, I'm going to kind of put these next ones, legislative and municipal court. We haven't had any changes. Victim advocate, Tina has asked if she could have a halftime person. She's the only one covering. And so, that's kind of a lot of burden on her because things are obviously not, everything happens between 8 and 5. So we have put in a halftime person in to help her out to cover things.
And let me follow up on
You
that
bet.
just a little bit also. So we currently have volunteers that work with her. And that, so they do have some assistance, but that coverage, it's the coverage that they need. And that can't be done with a volunteer. And right. And so the terms of, that's a grant funded position. There's lots of terms that go along with that grant, and, running that or having that program administered by volunteers is not per the grant. So we need to have people or personnel in there that are trained to be able to do that and cover. What we had before Tina came in and joined us, that position had been covered by 2 part-time people and had that way there was at least some opportunity to do some coverage or sliding people in hours if you needed to. And over the last 1.5 years or whatever, how long Tina's been here. So it's been, we haven't had that opportunity, and we've just been fortunate we've been able to cover, but it's been, as Teresa said, it's been tough on her in that office to provide coverage. That's why that halftime's in there.
That's definitely.
Chief, did you have anything else and you wanted to add on that, or?
I just wanted to mention that the service that we provide for our victims is actually above and beyond what is required by law. We talked about, should we reduce that? Should we go to the minimum? And none of us believe we should do that. But it is difficult for Tina to continue going the way she's been. She actually was here before me. So it's been a little over 2 years.
That's right.
And she's been on basically all the call outs and all those different things. A lot of those things happen at night or weekends, and it hasn't allowed her the opportunity to, fully live her life without having to worry about here. The volunteers are there, but they're not paid. And if they don't show up or they can't get out there, it's different. So we really want to keep Tina around and we don't want to burn her out. So thank you all for considering that. And
Yeah,
to Teresa and Devin for
the kind of job where you need some time off. Sometimes it's a stressful position. So.
absolutely a lot of vicarious trauma with that. So we want her to take care of herself.
All right, continuing on, public safety, city and county Denver fire, we always they've just told us 3%, just kind of keep putting that in. Then as far as community development, we're just keeping on down. Public Works, really kind of the same. I know I put transfer to capital was 478,000 less. That's because we had a lot budgeted in 2022 of projects to do. So there, you've seen the capital budget already, so you know that there's things happening, that we're doing things, within the building and within cars and different things like that. So, with that kind of looks like a big number, but it's just, there were some larger things budgeted in 2022. So how was that?
Looks good.
I'd like to, right at the end of Teresa's memo, that we talk about the overall increases from the adopted and the projected budget. You can see it's fairly minimal increases. We're looking at a 2.5% increase over what we adopted last year. And if you look at where we're projecting at the end of the year, it's fairly, well, it's not quite flat, but a little under 2% from where we're projected at the end of this year. So again, fairly conservative. And still being able to meet our service needs and even increase them, I think, here and there. And I think that is in large part what you can look at is what the departments have done over the year, that we've got department heads that do a very good job in keeping expenses in check and in control, and making sure that we're very aware of what does our revenue picture look like. And we look at that on a month-to-month basis and make sure that we're not exceeding our budgets. And then coming to management and saying, hey, I think there's ways that we can work out a need that we might have by working within the confines of an approved budget already. So not necessarily needing to go and amend our budgets, and working and operating within the adopted budgets that the council has approved. And so that makes it, much, much easier on finance and on me when we're trying to work our budgets and manage the budgets throughout the year, is that we've got department heads that are looking out for us and making sure that we're staying within the confines that the council has approved with us, or if we're not, that we've got a very good reason for that. And that kind of leads me into just being, not a word of warning, but, and Teresa touched on this, but if we're looking back and comparing budget years, like going into next year and comparing to this year and even into last year, the ARPA money really skews stuff. So always just be very careful when you're looking at making any comparisons, especially overall, when you're looking at overall revenues or overall expenditures on a year-to-year basis over, last year, this year, and into next year, because that ARPA money really skews things because it gets recorded in and it gets out. But as you can see, even in the graph, it skews our graphs. It says that, so just be aware of that money is out there, that when we pull that money out, we're trending and doing kind of basically our basic budget work like we always have. And things are trending in pretty much how we've always anticipated them. But that ARPA money is it's just there and something to be aware about, so you go, oh, well, look, we got some really big changes. And if you're seeing the big changes out in here, pretty much most of those are with ARPA, and those dollars that's what's involved there. I would like to touch also on just making sure that we're aware. I know we talked about making sure that we're talking about personnel and FTEs in there, and that we're giving you guys a clear picture on that. So we talked about the extra half-time person for victims advocate. We talked about taking the deputy city clerk and taking that FTE and kind of reverting it back to what it was before with an accounts payable and licensing position. We have, as we brought on this year an extra code enforcement officer, and we'll have that reflected in there. And then we have one other, what was the other one? That, in police admin, we brought in a part-time admin position, and that's reflected. It'll be new to next year's budget. It's not new to this year's budget. And again, the chief is one of those things we've been able to make that work within his budget. that he has now, and a good example of saying, hey, here's a need, but I can figure out how to make it work within what our approved budget is. But you'll see that in there as well, a new 0.5 FTE administrative police admin. But what to know is that that position is already filled. It's already being funded, and we're making that work within the confines of the current budget. So those are I think that's all the personnel or FTE types of issues, isn't it, Teresa? The one thing you won't find in here that the mayor caught is that we don't have our part-time sustainability coordinator. Now that's not going to be an FTE, that's going to be a contract position. So you won't see that under our personnel or our FTE counts. That'll be a contract position that will be under, I think we're going to, well, I don't know, we'll talk about where we're going to put that. Teresa and I thought we had it in there. The mayor caught it and made us aware that, wait, where is this one? And we had been thinking, oh, well, we have our contract money for the homeless coordinator position that we're sharing with the Tri-Cities and the county. And it's right around the exact same amount that was for the sustainability contract and the coordinator for that one. And so we both went, oh yeah, it's in there. And we were wrong. So the mayor, as usual, catches us when we miss something like that, but we will have that in there. We will tweak things a little bit here and there so that we'll still have a positive balance coming into the final budget when we bring it to you for final reading, or if not final, first reading, which will be the 24th of this month, our next meeting. So that I covered that. Now I'll be quiet. We'll be quiet and let you guys ask questions. Let's see what questions you have out there. And if you want us to walk through anything in more detail and walking through some of the line items, be happy to do that. If any of these line items don't make sense to you, like, because some of these are multiple line items, you know, it'll say contracted services for da-da-da-da or whatever in the manager's office. There's several things in there. And we'd be happy to, you know, let you know what that might be or anything else as well in here that doesn't make quite sense to you. We will make you sure that you feel comfortable with these, excuse me, with the numbers here and how they're presented to you tonight.
I just want to know if Arlene is training Jenna on how to keep a really tight budget. We know the city clerk budget is always just right, you know.
That's right.
Training her in the art of the slush fund.
Ah.
No, I'm kidding. Arlene runs a tight budget.
Yes.
The extra code enforcement officer, what's that under? Is that under
Public Works.
Public Works?
Right, and it's not reflected in the FTE count. It was a little snafu we caught just before we came in here, and we'll get
Okay.
that contract, that count to reflect that.
Counts in there.
Yes,
Just
uh-huh.
doesn't show the person.
Because that was, you remember, that was what we talked about mid-year, looking at bringing on the person and making sure that it fit within the confines of the budget, which it does. And we're able to accommodate that. We just have to formally recognize that in the FTE count, correct? And that for council's consideration, right? It's through the budget process that we approve the FTEs or the full-time equivalent employees that we have. So the council is the only ones that can approve a new FTE. Staff, I cannot approve them. I can recommend them to you. And what I do is recommend that we fund them in the budget. And then that's how council approves our full-time equivalent employees that we have. And then other employees that we have are going to be contract employees. And you'll see those reflected in the budget. And again, you approve the monies for those contracts as well at the recommendation for council. Depending on the amount of the contract, if it's under $50,000, you guys generally won't see those. I will approve any contracts that are under $50,000. However, they must be the monies must be appropriated in the budget. I can't approve a contract for any amount that I can't point to and say, well, I can pay for it. It's appropriated under these funds in the budget here. If it's $50,000 or over, those are the contracts that come to you guys for final approval. And then they also have to be appropriated in the budget as well.
No other questions? Okay,
Just making sure that we haven't. The mayor found our $12,000 phone bill in the VA of a budget too, so we.
we'll typo.
so- She almost got an extra, about 10 grand in there, but the mayor caught it.
Sorry.
That was an extra zero at the end of a $1,200 that turned into a. But it's so good because Teresa looks at these things. I look at them and we get to the point where your eyeballs are just. So it's always good to have council put their eyes on it and make sure and go, why are we spending $12,000 on it? Ooh, we're like,
Big
"Ooh,
increase."
We're not. I'm trying to think. I think we covered it all. Insurance. Again, we won't have so some of the things that could change between now and the final budget that you would probably one of the biggest ones would be insurance, health insurance. We have plugged 10% in, and I do agree with Teresa. I think that will be sufficient to cover it. In a meeting with a bunch of other city managers a week or so ago, a lot of them were using a 10% plug number. What we do is we don't get our quotes back from our carriers generally until November-ish, sometime, early November is where we hope to, late October, early November, which gives us time to kind of finalize it right before we do the final budget. Those cities that have seen some, if they have a carrier that's brought back quotes to them early, we're seeing single digits, which is nice, not a lot of the big ones. So I'm hopeful that will be 10% or less. But that could be one of the more significant numbers that could change between now and the final version. We bring you guys some adoption, and of course we'll point out what that is. And the way that we do our budget, that gets distributed through the overhead costs that you see in the personnel costs that are above the current expenses. So we'll give you an idea what that is exactly, and then but it gets distributed through the budget through the departments. So you won't see that as one single line item. We are doing a letter of credit again. I think we've mentioned this. We like to have a letter of credit included, a $200,000 letter of credit. It is very inexpensive insurance to have should anything catastrophic happen, and allows us to have some insure our liquidity. Again, should anything catastrophic happen, we've not had that, but we pay under $1,000 for that, to have that $200,000 standby should we need it. So again, we haven't tapped it in a while, but it sure feels good to have that there in case we have anything crazy like another epidemic flow through and we have to, or something here goes bad at the building and we have to, spend a good amount of money on something. Helps us to just make sure that we have that cash on hand should we need it. But we have, and I did the math just to let you know, as a council, when you look at our fund budget, or our fund balance, if you're looking at, we still keep a very, I think we're not increasing as much as we used to, but that's good because we've got it at a significant level. If you look at what we're showing here in the proposed budget right now, we're at about 62% of expenditures, which is very, very, very healthy. That's fantastic. A lot of cities will have a target at significantly lower than that. I'd say most cities have something in the range of 25 to 50% fund balance, or a fund balance that represents 25 to 50% of budgeted expenditures. the way they'll put it will be 3 months of operations, 6 months of operations, something along those lines. Where, as you can see here, at 62%, we're at over 6 months of operations there, which is nice to have. It also lets us, I think, maintain that buffer, as well as having some opportunity during the year if we have capital expenses come along or something that we want to be able to do. It gives us that flexibility to be able to do that and still maintain that operating balance buffer without having to get into the point where other cities will come back and start having to make budget cuts, and I don't anticipate us ever having to do that. I like to come back more in the middle of the year saying, hey, we can spend some more money if you'd like to do that, rather than saying we have to cut some budgets. So that's still looking really solid and healthy there. I really wanted to give a shout out to the chief. He's done a great job with his budgets. Budgets are not easy, and it takes a couple years to get the swing of things.
Mhm.
He's coming in, usually our police department is our biggest budget.
Mhm.
And usually a lot of our biggest increases are in the police department. And he has kept those completely under control. And if you look at that and look over a couple of years, we have a nice, fairly flat, while still accommodating, bringing in new personnel and being flexible on what we pay them and being competitive on what we can pay them and still being able to work that. So I think I just wanted to say that you've done a good job on that. As well as, all of our departments do. We don't see any huge things come along that are unanticipated, I should say, necessarily. And a lot of that is because we've had department heads and people that have been in place and been doing this for a long time and understand their budgets and understand how to manage their budgets and do that over time, over the course of a year, knowing when do your expenditures come in, when do you need to worry about things, when do you not need to worry about it. And all of our folks do a really good job on that. So we're fortunate to have a staff that manages the budget as well as they do for us. Okay, I'll stop rambling along. I think that's about it.
Okay.
Ask any other questions? We were all ready. Although the mayor got us a couple.
Gotcha.
The $12,000 phone bill in VA was, yeah, and the
That's not the
sustainability
intention at all.
coordinator position. Just so you guys know, I walked into Teresa's office, said, where do we stick the sustainability? Well, we put it right there. No, that's the other thing. And I'm like, oh no, did she? She's like, did you tell me? I'm like, well, I thought I did. But so, but again, that's why it's good to have multiple eyes on these budgets. And so,
Great. Should we move on to what's on the agenda for tonight?
oh, excuse me. So tonight we have second reading on a couple of things. Hold on, let me bring up your agenda. We have second readings on two of the orders we have on the amending the code regarding obstruction of police officer and adding the photo radar and radar tech positions into that. And then we also have a second reading on the event permit. And to answer the question, I think Randy sent on an email. I'm not sure if he sent it to all the council, but I know he sent it. The council had a question whether the event permit and the requirements of that would apply to Sheridan Celebrates, and the answer back is no, it won't. We're not going to require Sheridan Celebrates to do that. However, the mayor brought up a good point, and we can back up on the history of this a little bit. We used to have a permit, and I think technically we still do have a permit for block parties. And it used to have a fee associated with it. I can't even remember what it was, but we waived the, like we made the permit, made the fee, and then kind of like waived the fee right away when we realized, why did we want to promote those? Why would we do that? So anyway, we still have a block party permit. But then the question arose that the mayor brought up was that, well, would the event permit and the $100 associated with that apply towards, somebody come in and pull the block party? Well, No, but it could be a little confusing.
Mhm.
So the mayor suggested maybe we amend and during second reading of our ordinance tonight on the event permit, that we can amend it to include some language that says that we exclude any block party permit, anybody that pulls a permit for a block party. And again, we want them to still do that, just so we can notify, and basically, you know, what we want to see with the block party permit is really just so we know when it's going to happen. And so we can tell Public Works, we can tell PD, we can tell folks, okay, the block's going to be shut down, right? We don't really want to have a fee associated with that. But let's be really clear in case, you know, an employee was going, well, am I supposed to do this? Am I supposed to charge them or not?
Mhm.
And we'll just make sure. So if we can have somebody on council make a motion to amend that tonight, we can add that language into that and cover that situation.
We need to just amend that in the ordinance or also in the fee schedule. What do you think?
I'd have to look at the.
Hey, Devin.
Is
this
that you, Bill?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I don't know if you'd want to amend them from all the requirements. You may want to exclude them from the fee. Because if there's going to be a street closure, we want it done in accordance with all of the requirements. I mean, if they're going to
Right.
shut down the block.
Could we just add an entry in the fee schedule that says block parties 0 or something to make it real clear?
yes, we can absolutely do
Yes.
that.
Okay,
Okay, and that really, once you adopt that fee schedule, that establishes it there and would be a pretty clear indicator, right?
Yeah.
But we can add the language to Bill's point, be specific on the fee and maybe not necessarily the requirements.
okay.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Bill.
Sure.
Also on for this evening, we have 2 resolutions. So adoption of said fee schedule. And then we need to pull resolution number 26. That's a resolution that would be adopt or appointing Adams Group to audit the city's finances, and basically doing our audit. We want to pull that and move it to the 24th, our second meeting this month, to have it in conjunction with doing the SRA. So we would then appoint Adams to do both the city and the SRA and have that done at the same time. And so we're gonna, if it's all right with council, we'll pull that resolution number 26 and put it on the next agenda.
Is that redundant to what Pinnacle does? The audit?
It's in addition to, so we have to bring in an audit, and we contract with an outside agency, independent auditor, to audit all of our finances as well as the SRA's finances. So we'll have 2 contracts, one with Adams Group, used to be Poisty and Adams, and before that, I forget all the names. They've kind of gone through a few. But each year we're required to appoint that auditor then to provide the council the council and the public with an audit process through all of our financials. So that is, yes, in addition to what Pinnacle does. And Pinnacle and our finance people work with them and supply the information and the data that they need to do the audit. But then they perform the audit themselves and bring back an independent opinion that they report to the council. So you have that review and that opinion independent of our finance department and independent of management.
And just a little tidbit of information, we are, per state statute, if we have over 750,000 in revenue, any governmental entity has to have an audit. If they have less than 750,000, they can do what's called an audit exemption, but we're not ever going to have to worry about that. So we have to have, because of that, we have to have an independent auditor look over and make sure I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And so that's why we have the auditor is per state statute. There's Mud.
And we've used, I still want to say Poisty and Adams, but it's Adams Group now. We've used them and their auditors for a number of years now. And I like that. We a couple, 3 years ago, I believe that we kind of did a little solicitation to make sure that their fees were in line with other auditors out there to make sure that we were just kind of doing our due diligence, that we weren't paying more than we needed to pay for the services. But I feel that they do an excellent job on our audit. They work well with our staff, and importantly, they have learned our processes and our policies and our financial systems, which is important for them to be able then to review them and tell us, if we're doing things correctly or not. So for example, with the SRA is a very, very complicated and convoluted, financial system, and the debt service that goes along with that, and all the bondage, all those kind of things. It's a pretty steep learning curve for an auditor to come in there and understand what's going on. And they have already gone through that learning curve. We have the people that come in that understand that system. They understand our general government systems and our budget system and how all those things work. So they can do a really thorough, good job. They're just sitting there reviewing and making sure that we're being consistent without having to learn on the job as they go. It's also more efficient and effective for our staff, especially Teresa. She doesn't have to teach new auditors what's going on. I mean, it's essentially when you bring in a brand new auditor, that's what you're doing. You're saying, okay, here's this information with that. So it's very time intensive on our staff. It's already time intensive on our staff to do an audit. And it's even more so if you have auditors that are not familiar with your city and not familiar with your organization. Adam's group is, and so that makes it easier on our staff as well. I'm just rambling tonight.
We got time.
Okay.
Or what else do you want to ramble about?
Oh, let's ramble. Hold on, there was something else, wasn't there? No, that was
Got a
that.
few more minutes.
Can I ramble on about some Tri-Cities homeless action plan stuff?
Can I ask a real quick?
Oh, please,
No.
yes.
On the permit ordinance? Do we have to amend it or no? If we're just gonna add a line?
We'll change it
No,
on
we
the fee
won't need to
schedule
amend it.
instead,
Just, okay,
which is a
thanks,
separate.
that's all I need. We're just gonna add the line to the fee schedule.
Yes.
So we don't have to change the ordinance whatsoever.
Right.
I think that would be fine.
Mhm.
I think that'll work
Yeah,
well.
I think the public's going to look at the fee schedule at
Yeah.
least, rather than the
And
ordinance.
that's the main tool we use as well, right? When someone's at the window or something, they're looking at, all right, I'm issuing a permit, how much is it? That's why we have that schedule, yeah. Okay, let me hand out this summary. So this is a nice summary that just came out. Mike Sundgren, who's our Sandgren, Mike Sandgren, who is our Tri-Cities homelessness coordinator and works through the conjunct. This is the position that we fund with the Tri-Cities groups as well as the county. He put together a nice little summary report because we had our Tri-Cities meeting last Thursday. We had Tri-Cities, and he came in and gave a briefing to the three councils about the action plan and its impacts to date, which should be understood to be, in its beginning stages as it is. This is our first year of the implementation of the action plan that the three cities adopted. So Mike went through and kind of pulled out a few of the things that can help people kind of understand where we are so far and what kind of progress has been made with the number of housing placements, workforce program placements, where we are in financing, the amount of money that has either been pledged and or expended. And if you look on the back of the page, it's going to give you just a quick table that shows what has been allocated, what has been expensed, and the source for that. So give you an idea of where we are on that within the beginnings of this first year. I would say that we are ahead of where we thought we would be. at this point and are making really good progress. It's nice to have actual staff working towards implementing the plan now. And that's the other part I wanted to update. So the kind of the next big milestone that we'll be seeing coming out of the policy group now will be the approval of an RFP, a request for proposals, to solicit proposals for from the nonprofit community for operation of our navigation center that we want to get forward. That's a year 2 priority, but we're already kind of on the road to identifying who that might be, as far as we will hire to operate a navigation center. To give council a better idea of that, I'm going to invite Mike to come to one of our work sessions, Mike Sandgren to come to one of our work sessions. Hopefully before the end of the year, if not early next year. We'll make sure, and Mike can come in and kind of do a little briefing on the real nitty gritty details. And we can spend an hour or so talking about where we're going to over the next year. And I think it'll be pretty exciting. The cities have have appropriated a good amount of money to really move the needle and make some things happen here. And it's really gaining some momentum. So it's exciting. It's great to see, and make sure that we're trying to keep council in the loop as much as we can and informed, because things are really going to, I think, have some traction and get going here shortly. Did I miss anything, Mayor, from that aspect of the meeting at least?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It's all on here.
Yeah, it's all pretty much on there, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Or if you run into questions, people are not sure about things, or haven't, just can always refer them to me and be happy to
I
help.
did
out
notice
with
he's
that.
got the total wrong for Sheridan though. So I don't know if you want to
Is it?
let him know. It's, yeah. Didn't see it when you gave it to me before, but
Let's see, allocation 33.
it should be 283,000.
Oh, he didn't add up the, yeah, okay. I'll make sure that gets changed.
I don't know if
I
the,
see what you're
I
saying.
don't know if it's in the grand total or not, but
I'll check that too.
I don't think it is. That's the kind of thing.
Okay. Dallas, did you have a question?
All this is good and I like it. Don't get me wrong. It's great that we have all the numbers and we've got all the paper clips and papers and pencils, people and buildings paid for and everything. I just had this idea that if I'm homeless under the bridge and I get this epiphany that this isn't a lifestyle that I want to live,
Mhm.
what happens now? I mean, we've got all this done. How is the outreach?
How's the what?
How's the outreach compared to the money? Have we processed any people through our program at all?
Well, there's a few that have been, as you can see on the front, some that have been done with housing placements. Okay, and some that have gone through the workforce program that has been initiated in through some of the aspects of the work plan. We're not set up to where we're ready to like necessarily put people in the pipeline and give them that'll be the navigation aspect that comes online.
Okay.
And those are that's the RFP. That's the scope of that RFP, I would say right now is about 90% done. And hopefully will get issued sometime in the next month or so. And then what we hope is that we'll then solicit proposals again from the nonprofit community. It'll be the change of the trends out there. It could be Ready to Work with Bridge House. It could be other nonprofits that are out there that run navigation centers currently for various jurisdictions that would solicit and say, okay, here's how we would propose to run a navigation center for the towns or for the cities. As we said, we've identified the monies that can go there, and now it's getting those things in place. So I would say, Dallas, to answer your question, we're right on track for the action plan that was adopted by the 3 councils. So right on track with that. Is it as fast as we would all like it? No.
I would say
Yeah.
too, that if you see on the that number of housing placements list, that path outreach team. That's a pilot that's going on right now in Englewood. So I think we're going to kind of see how it goes there. And then the hope would be maybe that that group would operate in Littleton and Sheridan as
Yeah.
well, if it's successful. And that really is street outreach. That one's related to mental health particularly.
Right.
And then part of the action plan is having street outreach for other purposes, not just mental health long-term, but that's further on in the years of the plan.
Right, right. Did that help answer your
Yes, it
question,
does.
Dallas?
Yeah,
And what
I
I,
think
what I,
I get you.
when I get Mike in, we'll go into some more real detail
Yeah.
with that, okay? And more so than it's just
And that path-
a lot of this is like
Yeah.
new to me too, and I'm still, trying
And
to
that
get a
path
hold of
only
it as well.
started in what, August, or was it September, the path program? It started just like a month or two
Right.
ago.
Oh, it was not long
Yeah,
at
it's
all.
not long
I
ago.
mean, it's
And so
maybe
to
been
mean,
up and
already
going
have
for a
one-
month or two.
To have
yeah.
one housing placement already is
Yeah.
not bad, really, out of
Yeah.
2 months.
And
of
it's
operation.
just operating in Inglewood, I believe,
Mhm.
at this moment as well. And then with the anticipation that they'll
Mhm.
kind of get their feet under them and then expand to
Yeah.
Littleton and to Sheridan as well. So we'll have some more outreach opportunities there. Yeah.
Good.
Let's see.
Oh, we're on time. We're done now. We're out of time.
We are, and I just want to make sure I covered all those
That was
things.
a good one.
I did cover that. Okay.
Okay, we'll adjourn the work session at 7 PM.
La sesión.
Can I get an introduction for our regular meeting from Gisela?
Yes, thank you again. My name is Gisela, and I want to say thank you one more time for practicing language justice. Thank you for your commitment and for giving an opportunity where people can participate and engage in the language of their heart. We're going to be using simultaneous interpretation to create this space. So when I finish saying this in Spanish, we will turn on interpretation and you will see the globe icon on the bottom of your bar that says interpretation. If you're not fully bilingual, I ask that you select your preferred language. And remember, if you're going to be presenting or facilitating, please be aware of your speed, knowing that Spanish takes 20 to 25% longer than English. Hola a todas las personas. Una vez más, gracias a los organizadores de este evento por practicar justicia de lenguaje. Gracias por su compromiso y por dar la oportunidad donde las personas pueden participar e involucrarse en el idioma de su corazón o en el idioma que se sienten más cómodos. Para esto vamos a estar usando la interpretación simultánea. Así que cuando termine de decir esto, vamos a aprender interpretación y usted va a ver un icono de un globo en la barra de abajo de su pantalla y puede seleccionar ahí su idioma. Cualquier pregunta nos puede hacer saber. Gracias. Thank you very much. You can go ahead and turn on interpretation.
Thank you. I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Sheridan City Council for October 10th, 2022. The time is 7:02 PM. We have all council members present. We rise for the invocation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. There we go.
Arlene.
Oh, it wasn't me. It wasn't me.
Heavenly Father, we just, again, we're so grateful and thankful that we're able to gather in person and to ask for your guidance. It's such a great honor and such a great privilege to live in a country that still recognizes that we fall under a higher power. And we're so grateful for that. Lord, I ask that you just continue to bless the city of Sheridan, all that work in the city, all that visit the city, those that keep our city safe and clean, and those of us that work diligently to try and make good, hard decisions for our citizens. We ask for continued blessing over each and every one of us in this room. And we pray all of this in your name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the
the
flag
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I think we're removing resolution 26 for tonight. Is that right? We're removing resolution 26.
Yes, we are.
Any other changes?
No, that's the only
Okay.
change. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. We have an opportunity for public comment if there's anyone who'd like to speak to council tonight.
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Staff reports, city clerk.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In the past, council has canceled the second meeting in the months of November and December. That would be November 28th and December 26th. I was wondering if you wanted to do that again this year.
I think that would make sense. From what I've heard from the city manager, we won't have anything pressing to cover in those meetings.
Right, and the rationale behind this is both of those are holiday weeks.
Mhm.
We're usually short on staff and short on items for council action anyway, so.
Mhm. Anybody have any concerns about it, or is that all right?
So what days were there?
The second meetings of both November and December would be canceled.
So it'd be November 28th
28th.
and December 26th.
That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, I'll take that as a no worries about that.
You gotta be able to play with your toys right after the next
Right.
day after Christmas, right?
Or shop.
Or shop.
Anything else?
No, that's all I have tonight, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. City attorney, do you have anything for us?
No comments, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. City manager, what else do you have?
Just a few other items, Mayor. The floors in City Hall are almost complete, looking very good. And so they've been finishing up putting in some laminate flooring that is in the hallways behind here as well as down in the PD. Are they all done downstairs, Chief? Or not quite? Okay, so still working on the PD. But if you want to see what that laminate, you can look in the hallway behind here. Looks really good. And then as you can see, we're getting ready to finish up the entryway here as you get to play hopscotch on the way in. But I think that's all going very well. It's getting good reviews from everybody I've talked to, and they all think people think it looks really nice. So that's exciting. Lighting upgrades are continuing here in City Hall. We've got a lot of the areas done, but you can see we still have a few areas left that need to work. We'll work on these areas too when we have some of the off weeks that we'll have at the end of the year, now that you guys have okayed that. So we'll have some opportunity to do some work in this room and clean it up. Help me remember, Jenna, everything that we're doing in here. It's lights. We're going to extend this workbench, the dais over there, so we can build in. So Jenna or Amy, whoever's running things,
Doesn't have to be in the little corner.
sitting over there, on
Another place to sit.
in a temporary type of setup. We are looking at improvements to the dais.
We're
look-
adding another camera.
Another
So we're
camera.
adding a camera behind you guys that will focus on the podium, because in our meetings, we're not seeing those people that are presenting.
You gotta
Cover
fix
the
the back
bald
of your
spot
head.
The other thing we're doing is we're removing that voting board on the back corner. So that'll be coming out, all the voting mechanisms on your desks or on the dais, those are all coming out. And we are going to be moving forward with electronic voting system. And so there'll be actually a monitor that's going to go behind you. That'll be a voting board, an actual TV. So more information to come on that.
Cool.
It's really sharp. So Jenna's run a couple demos for us on that new electronic voting system. I think you guys will really like it. We'll set up some work session time to training because it's definitely going to have a little bit of a learning curve to it. But I think it's also very intuitive. And I think once we get it, we'll be like, oh, why haven't we been doing this for a while?
Yeah,
So
that'll be nice to get rid of voice voting.
Yes,
little
and it
tedious.
also works with hybrid meetings, so you can join it remotely. So if you're home, you can still participate And it shows you like the agenda items as we go through it. So it's a really cool
Great.
system.
Yeah.
Yeah, and big yes, no buttons and
So you think that's by the end of the year as well, or is that further? out?
so originally our goal was November 14th, but when we found out the courtroom was going to be being updated on the 15th of November, we don't want to install computers twice. So we're going to push potentially for the meeting in December to do our training
Okay,
during the work session and then go live beginning of 2023.
great.
Can I
And-
make a suggestion?
Yes.
Can you put plugs in here in case our computers go down during the meeting?
So that is one thing that Randy is looking at is putting the full electricity through the dais.
Mhm.
You could plug in cell phones, so you can plug in your computer, all of those things. So we are looking at adding the other plugins to the dais. So
Cool. Yep. Thanks.
I do have one over here. If
Yeah,
you're ever
Is
really
there
hard
one
up.
there?
it's the
There's
only
one
one.
here somewhere.
Yeah, there's only one.
I swear.
Yeah, a lot of. Or-
So at some point, I will have to steal your Microsoft Goes just to get the software loaded and get it tested before we do our training. So probably after the next meeting, I will request your devices for that.
We'll let you know, Cindy out a reminder to bring them in.
Yes, I'll send out an email.
Okay. Thank you, Jenna. Let's see, what else do I have? We did that. And then I think I mentioned, or maybe I just mentioned it to the mayor. I'll be out of town at our next council meeting. So we'll leave you in the capable hands of our city clerk and our police chief and our wonderful staff. And you'll have first reading of the budget and a few other things, but it should be no problems there. So I told the mayor, I'm taking my wife on a trip for her birthday I bought a while ago. And so we'll be actually flying back right at the time of the meeting. So I doubt I'll be able to even call in, but if I can, I will.
Okay.
Just wanted to give you a heads up on that. That's it, Mayor. Be happy to answer any questions.
All right. Anybody have questions?
Mhm.
for the city manager?
Oh. Yeah, we can do that now, or?
I was going to ask about the newsletter, if that's what you're mentioning. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, do you want to do that now, or did you want to do it during your
Do
item?
it
or-
now. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so the mayor and Councilmember Whitaker had shared some emails with regard to the newsletter. I think the mayor received one email from a citizen that has difficulty accessing it electronically. And then Jay had mentioned that he'd had some input along those lines as well. I talked with Amy about that. And what we would suggest at this point was that we could provide some printed copies that we would print out here and make available in various locations in the community. So at City Hall, at the library, at the rec center, other places that have allowed us to place materials in the past, and then make people aware of that. So people that do not have access to it electronically. Hopefully, like that person that had some access because she sent you an email.
Well, she
So-
said other people. She said she was writing on behalf of
Of the
people
other
she
people.
knew.
And so hopefully we can get that to be, we can spread the word on that and let people know, all right, if you don't have electronic access, you can pick up a hard copy and we'll have them available in these locations. We also, thought that we could make hard copies available to each of the council members so that you guys have 5, 10 copies, whatever you want, put it in your mailbox. And if you have constituents or somebody that wants them, and you can bring them there and you're their hero. And bring them a hard copy if you'd like to do that as well. And then, did I cover that, Amy? Is that pretty much what we talked about? So I think those were some of the suggestions that we had to be able to accommodate the folks that can't
Yeah. I
get
think
it
that's a
on a
great idea. I
computer
think-
or a phone.
I want to say Kathleen, at the library had even asked about getting copies for theirs. So
Yeah, and we've provided other materials, and even I think maybe the newsletter at times at a lot of those locations. And then other places, if any of the trailer parks have a common area that they would allow us, again, we have to have their permission. Or any other places that council would suggest that we maybe do, and we can post it down at the at Sheridan Square, at their bulletin board. Yeah, we mentioned the rec center. Eddie would let us do that. Library. We can see if there's any location down at River Point. I'm not sure where that might be. That would be good, but
You
maybe
could hang it up
Panera,
at
maybe
Panera, I guess. They have a
Starbucks.
community, yeah, they both have community boards, I think. but-
Yeah, possibility. for
Depends
that.
on how many you want to print out. Maybe you could give it to the pantry.
Yeah,
Oh,
they've
would be a
done
good
handouts for us before. So like inserts or however you want to say, they've done that. But I want to be a little bit careful about how often we do that
Yeah.
because they're already stretched pretty thin and it's all they can do to get what they have, out to folks. But I'd be happy to mention that to them. They with Sheridan Shares, they attend our can-do meetings and we can
Mhm.
have a discussion with them about
Yeah, I
if
don't know
that
if I
might
want
be
to
a
give it to,
possibility.
I don't know if I'd wanted to give it to every person who came through there because a lot of them aren't Sheridan residents.
Yeah, I'm
so
not
then
sure.
it'd be kind of pointless, really, I guess.
But you could possibly,
I think they screen them for where they're from every
Yeah.
time, so maybe they could just give them to Sheridan people or something.
it's a possibility.
Yeah.
And any other thoughts or ideas that you have on that? And so I'll turn it over to council here. Is that adequately address what
Yes.
council had? Jay, you have some thoughts?
So I just think that mailing them to every household guarantees that the people who can't walk or don't leave their home, who don't, go to these social places a lot of us do to pick stuff up, that we'd be leaving them out if we don't send it directly to their home. I may be a minority in thinking that, but I just, people like something that they can read over and over, especially as they get older. We've got an aging population, right, in Sheridan.
Oh,
But
yeah.
for those people, they're telling me they really do like having something that they can read and put down and come back to. It's not on their phone or their computer. I just think sending them to people's homes would be the best route to get the best communication with everybody.
I don't know. I'm torn because I do agree with that on the one hand, but I know it's also a pretty significant expense.
right.
It is a little bit, and I'll just, for the purposes of discussion, can go back and kind of fill in some of this. So we used to print and mail it, and there was significant expense that was incurred by the city on an annual basis to do that. And the feedback we got from the vast majority of people we talked to is that they did not read it. And they didn't look at it, they didn't read it. It went straight out with the junk mail. That was the vast amount of input that we got in response back. Now, was there some folks that did it? Absolutely, there are some. And so that was one of the primary, if not the primary reason for transitioning to an online or an electronic format, was the thought that we'd actually even be able to reach more people than we were. The people that we would be reaching would be wanting it because they'd be opting in and getting it and hopefully actually reading it and using it. And then we were able to transition from that expense and use the expense of mailing and printing, the mail house, the print house, all those kind of things that we did, and use those monies to offset the cost of a public information officer position, to help us with then looking at spreading the word and getting that out. So I hear what you're saying, Jay, and if everything that we have heard though from our citizens, from most of the citizens that we have, has said that they didn't read the print.
Would we be able to maybe split the difference and have like an opt-in for a reason, like I'm homebound, don't use electronics, please send me a copy? I mean, could we do a small manual run of, things that we mail out?
Maybe it's something that we could look and see if that, when we sent it out, if people would opt for that. Yeah, I haven't heard, we have not, that was not something that anybody asked us for 10 years. I'm not saying that there isn't that there. I'm just saying that we were not made aware of anybody that said, well, I have no way of getting it.
But I mean, it sounds like Jay's hearing that at least, that they're,
Yeah.
and
I mean,
can't, I can't say, given the source that emailed me, if, how many people there might be or not with,
yeah.
with that situation. But
Yeah, but when you're looking at this, if you're looking at engaging a mail house and a print house and all this, you need to have the numbers in the thousands. to
Right.
Make it
No, I'm
worth
not
your
saying,
expense, and we don't have that.
no, I'm not saying that at all. I
Yeah.
wouldn't think we would go back to a. mail
I'd like to make one request. The people that are contacting him, if you could get their mailing address, can we really find out the number of
Yeah.
people?
I mean, if
And-
it's like 3 people in the city, and you want to give me 3 copies, I'll fold them and stick a stamp on it and mail it. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like,
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And I think that's where we really got to
Yeah.
look at it. That we need that person with that tangible address.
yeah.
Say, here, we're going to do this for you.
Yeah.
And rather than go back to the old way, I know and a lot of people, as they get older, they don't want to get on the internet and stuff, okay? And I kind of understand that, but at the same time, I'm like you, I'd be glad to donate some stamps.
Mhm.
But I think we need to see the actual numbers
Mhm.
and a physical address so that we know that we're not just mailing it to mail
So
it.
maybe that's the answer, is that some council members will volunteer if it's a low number, if you'll help us kind of
Right.
accommodate that list maybe, or maybe we
Absolutely.
get our own lists. I don't know.
Could you use the
But-
census?
I,
Because wouldn't it show households that have elderly people? Because most generally, I know, and maybe it's just a neighborhood thing. Maybe it's just Jay and ours neighborhood that's getting old. Because there are a lot of elderly folks in that neighborhood, the old Fort Logan neighborhood.
Just
And-
throughout Sheridan, period. Even when I
Yeah.
when I was doing my campaign and I went door to door,
There's a
Like-
lot.
pretty much 85% were elder, for sure.
That answers
Hey.
the door.
Yeah.
84%, okay?
Mm. And so would the census make sense?
The census
That would
is
make
kind of a
sense,
snapshot
mhm.
every 10 years.
Right, and
Right,
it, but
so
it would
it's-
show, and it was what, 2 years ago, so it would show, at least give you kind of an idea of how many households were elderly folks. And those could be the ones that you could mail a questionnaire to.
Well,
Yeah,
I-
but
In
gotta
that
say-
lines, I'm considered elderly and I don't want to.
Yeah.
I'm not sold on that.
Yeah.
That's
Elderly people are
criteria
not,
for receiving a-
homogeneous population. of
Yeah.
people,
And
you know?
I think sometimes it's convenient to say, oh, I can't, I don't want to get on,
My mother
somebody
doesn't.
at Sheridan Celebrates I just recently was talking to, and I said, oh, that was in the newsletter.
Mhm.
Oh, well, no, I don't get that. I don't get that.
I don't,
And it's an excuse to say, I don't want to read it.
I get the text message. I click on the link, it pops up right then and there.
Sure.
Right, so do I, but my mother can't see on the computer. She can't. But
So you can give her one. That's
Yeah.
one done.
yeah,
We accomplished something.
that's one person for
So,
sure that would. read
Right.
it.
So we have to try.
And
you're
If it
right.
has my picture in it, she'll keep it forever.
There
I mean,
you go.
and it's just, and she's 85, but there's, I can probably think of 3 or 4 other people that right in my neighborhood that don't use the computer
Right.
because they don't have one, they don't know how, they can't navigate it. And I've tried, my mom can't use her phone yet. And she's had it for over a few years now. And she will swipe and everything goes away. And it's like, no, mom, just swipe up.
Right.
That's all you got to do.
Well, in what you guys have to think about and what we think about as staff is some language that we use, and you'll hear this a lot in when we talk about service provision from governments, is that you have to make reasonable accommodations, right? So what is a reasonable accommodation to try and either administer somebody that's trying to come into your building or access your information and things along those kind of lines like that. You guys are going above and beyond, what you would even consider for that. So this is good, but making electronic versions available, making printed versions available in multiple locations throughout the community. At some point, you got to draw a line, or else I've got my staff spending days chasing a handful of people just to do this. And
Right.
I've got better things for them to do. So we've got to kind of, I want to get it to everybody. I would love to. We're not going to be able to get it to everybody. No matter what we do, we are not going to get it to everybody. And if you got it to everybody, they're not all going to read it. So we have to have, some level of, okay, we've made enough of an effort. We have spent the time and effort. We've spent adequate resources to be able to get this every. And I would argue that when we hired Amy on, we are reaching much more people than we ever reached before through the newsletter, through our social media efforts and through that. I would love to be able to accommodate people. And I think the printed version in certain locations, and to council, if you guys want to help out, I'm happy to have us help out. And we figure out, an hour every month to figure out this one piece, and we'll take care of folks who can't do it. If they have a need that a computer is too expensive for them, or internet is too expensive for them, or they're not able to access it, let us help find that information out, because I can get them into programs that are out there. Verizon has programs to buy people computers and get them cheap internet access. So if there are barriers, that the reason that they're not getting or don't, not accessing it electronically, there are ways that we can go out and help those people to do that. And then if the people, but then that you're going to have the handful of folks here that don't want to do anything about it, we'll try as best we can. I promise. We'll try as best we can to reach them.
And I wouldn't mind taking, a handful around my neighborhood. I mean, that's one way as a nurse to do an actual physical check on them anyway. I mean, so I've killed 2 birds.
Yeah. And we're happy to do that. It's like, we're happy to provide copies to council. You can get, like you said, if you want to bring them to somebody that that can. I said, if we got police officers that we know that are doing welfare checks and stuff like that, we'll make them available to the police officers to drop them off, things like that. So we're happy to do that. But what I say, my recommendation is, we can't go back to the days of mailing them out and printing them out and mailing them to everybody, because it just didn't work.
Okay. I'm fine with that response. I mean, and I'm fine with responding to the resident who contacted me and saying, if you want to give me some names and addresses, I will get them copies of it.
Yeah.
Because I doubt it's going to be more than 1 or 2 anyway. So.
Right. And if they're from the trailer parks and you would get permission.
If they'd let us
there,
put it in their
would-
community areas.
They would.
They would, yeah.
That'd
they
be
would
great.
Probably pick those up and read them and, whatever.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to spend, an hour or 2 a month putting that kind of stuff in and accommodating that. That's fine.
There's other places too.
Yeah, there are.
After thinking about it, there's Mike's over here, Little T's,
Oh, gosh, Monahan's,
Monahan's.
long
just
shot.
Put a few there. I think
Hey, I'm just saying, we know where our people hang out, right?
Okay.
I'm I still believe that if I wanted to contact everybody in Sheridan about something, it would be via the mail. I'm open to discussion. I'm willing to go and support what we're doing. I just think we're missing one vital piece of media. We've got social media, we've got the online newsletter, but I think we're missing out if we're not utilizing print as well. And we've already got everything. We've already got Amy doing it all, putting it all together, print it out, fold it up, and mail it. That's what I think. But
Thoughts?
I'm kind of, let's really find the real feel of how many, I'll bet it's a dozen people. And once again, even the Denver Post, I get it on Sunday and it's just a little leaky. In fact, a couple of my neighbors have completely done away with it because print media it's the unfortunate thing. It's really a thing of the past. Just like a lot of radios, everything now is you get on a thing. My grandchildren taught me how to get music, and all this stuff, and I hardly ever listen to a regular radio. So I mean, it's one of those things. I don't think we need to go backwards. Let's go forward. But let's find out how many of those people really exist. Are they just? And I hope not. I just that they're not just calling up to complain, saying I don't know what's going on. So let's try it that way and see what goes on. And we can go from there.
Yeah. And I would encourage council, if you know of anybody has a very, a legitimate reason for a reason that they can't do us, let us know their address. We'll figure it out.
Okay. All right, well, I don't hear any big clamor to change direction at this point, but we'll kind of monitor how this goes. And if we end up with a large number of people who can't be served for whatever reason, maybe we'll revisit this. Okay. All right, any other questions for city manager before we move on? Chief?
I have a few things. I'll just go through them real quick. Number one, want to start with the remodeling that we're having done in the PD and just thank the city manager for listening to our needs and to all of you for that. It really makes a big difference. The pride effort for our officers and those who work down there, it's really making a positive difference. So thank you all for supporting us in that. Saturday morning, we took an opportunity to go down to Kings Point and visit with our seniors. And thanks to Amy for setting that up. But myself, Commander Moscow, and several of our officers and sergeants went down and spent some time with them, talked to them, and just let them know we care about them and we're thinking about them. And I think it went extremely well. I heard a lot of their concerns. And I think we built better partnerships there. So that was a good event on Saturday. It was well worth the couple hours that we took to go do that. And one other thing I wanted to mention is that Devin was extremely gracious in mentioning about our budget. I know that I've, as the leader of our department, I fell short in making sure that our officers continue to cite people when they need to be cited. Traffic safety is an extreme issue that we have. And I want you to know that we are directing our officers to make sure that they not only stop and, check with people, but we have this large focus on our community interactions and being positive. But we do have to make sure that we are also citing people that deserve to be cited. So I want you to know that we are focusing on that. Again, we're not going overboard with this, but we're definitely going to focus on that, make sure that we're a well-rounded department and heading in the right direction on that as well. So if you hear complaints that we're citing people, we are going to be citing people. Again, it's not just widespread, but we have to make sure that we're correcting that behavior. So, and then the only other thing I wanted to say was 2 days, it'll be 2 years that I've been here. I want to again, thank you all for this opportunity. I'm extremely honored to be here. I really thought that it would take about 6 months, 9 months to a year to accomplish a lot of what I wanted to get to. Almost 2 years and we're still working hard. But I think the reason is that we're pursuing excellence. It's what I tell the officers. It's what I tell everyone is that we're pursuing excellence. And to get to excellence, we can't stop. We have to continue to be better all the time. So part of the reason why maybe we're not stagnant and where I think we need to be is that we're never going to be there. We can't be perfect. We're human beings and it's a very difficult job. But as long as we keep moving forward to be the best that we can be and be one of the best departments that people look at us and say, now that's a great department. And we're getting there. We have people that are wanting to join us from places all over. It is working, but we couldn't do that without the support of city council, our city manager, our staff, our city staff that backs us and does all the things that they do. But I just want you to know that I'm extremely honored to be here. And I'm always open to fresh ideas or anything that you need. So thank you.
Great. That's nice to hear. And yeah, I agree with you. And excellence is not an endpoint. You got to keep going. And I think you've shown us that over the 2 years that you just keep coming up with new ideas to make things better. So I appreciate that. Just keep it up. Great. Anybody have questions for the chief before we move on? Next, we have the minutes of the regular city council meeting of September 26, 2022.
I'll make a motion.
Jinx. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
I'll second. Motion made by Councilmember Smith, seconded by Councilmember Stang. Any discussion on the minutes? Can we get a vote, please?
Councilmembers Hall,
Yes.
Stang,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Mayor Barterfluer,
Yes.
Councilmembers Whitaker,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Consent agenda, authorized disbursements that have been or will be made from September 16th, 2022 to September 30th, 2022 in the amount of $643,439.08 per the referenced and attached transfer of funds.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilmember Whitaker and seconded by Councilmember Daigle. Any discussion on the consent agenda? Can we get a vote, please?
Councilmember Stang,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Mayor Barterfluer,
Yes.
Councilmembers Whitaker,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We have items for individual consideration, ordinances on second reading. We have ordinance number 10 of 2022, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sheridan, Colorado, amending section 50-38 of the Sheridan Municipal Code regarding obstructing of peace officer, firefighter, emergency medical services provider, rescue specialist, code enforcement officer, park ranger, or volunteer.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 10 of 22.
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilmember Whitaker and seconded by Councilmember Smith. Any discussion on ordinance number 10?
I just wanted to bring up that I was at a Dr. Cog thing last week, and the mayor of Nederland and the mayor of Idaho Springs both were there. And I think by having ordinances like this that protect our police officers, show that we appreciate them and that we care for their safety, because Nederland has no police force right now. And Idaho Springs have 2 police officers right now. They've left because they've different reasons. Mostly they didn't feel appreciated. They didn't feel cared for or safe, and having issues with people being angry at them all the time, and them, being looked upon as the bad guys as opposed to looking at them as a positive force. And so I think this is a really important thing for us to do, and because it does show that we do appreciate our emergency personnel, and we value you very much, for sure. And anything that we can do to make you and your officers, or the fire department, or even the park rangers, which I didn't know we had one, but they all need to be felt, like we appreciate them, and that they're honored, and that they're a huge part of this community. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else from council? Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on ordinance number 10?
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can we get a vote, please?
Councilmembers Daigle,
Yes.
Mayor Barterfluer,
Yes.
Councilmembers Whitaker,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Stang,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance number 11 of 2022, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sheridan, Colorado, enacting Chapter 23 of the Sheridan Municipal Code regarding community event permits.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 11 of 2022.
I'll second.
Motion made by Councilmember Daigle and seconded by Councilmember Whitaker. Any discussion from council on ordinance number 11?
Mayor Barterfluer,
Yes. Oh, hold on. No. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak on this?
Not at this time, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We can have a vote then.
Councilmember Barterfluer,
Yes.
Councilmembers Whitaker,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Stang,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Next, we have resolutions. Resolution number 25 of 2022. A resolution of the City Council of the City of Sheridan, Colorado, adopting the City of Sheridan's 2023 fee schedule.
I'll move to approve resolution number 25, 2022.
A second.
Motion made by Councilmember Daigle and seconded by Councilmember Stang. Is there anyone who would like to discuss or possibly amend the fee statement? The fee schedule.
Mayor, if somebody could just make an amendment where there's the community event permit and $100, and then besides it, in just brackets, put block parties exempt.
Would someone like to make that amendment? Suggestion.
So moved.
You,
Exactly what he just said.
We should state it for the record.
yes, please.
Darn it.
You can do it.
I would like to amend.
You gonna go ahead?
You want to do it?
I'll make the amendment.
Go ahead.
As Mr. Hashashi said,
He said that we have to.
oh, we have to.
No, you got to say it word for word.
So you want me to go back to it?
Yeah, let's go back to it. I'm sorry.
So I will like to make a motion to amend the resolution 25 of 2022 to include in the line of, now I'm gonna have to read it, community events permits for $100, place brackets and place in the amendment that block parties will have no fee, a $0 amount.
Or just say block parties exempt.
Block parties exempt.
Yes.
Thank you.
How about that?
We have a second on that.
I'll second.
A motion for amendment was made by Councilmember Daigle and seconded by Councilmember Stang. Do we just vote now on the amended?
Yes.
Okay, anyone have any discussion on this before we vote?
This is for the amendment only. Councilmembers Whitaker,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Stang,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Mayor Biderfluer.
Yes.
Now we'll have a vote for the amended resolution number 25. Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Kelly,
Yes.
Hall,
Yes.
Stang,
Yes.
Daigle,
Yes.
Mayor Biderfluer,
Yes.
Councilmembers Whitaker,
Yes.
unanimous, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for getting through
Playing
that.
along.
Resolution number 26 is being postponed till our next meeting. No, for the meeting on the 24th. Mayor's choice, I do not have anything now because I was going to bring up the newsletter and that was it. Anybody have anything they want to bring up?
Is this the weekend for coffee with council?
Oh, thank you for reminding me. I was going to ask Arlene to cancel until further notice
What's that?
all coffee with councils until we have a new plan.
Oh,
We're gonna go bowling. Bowling with council.
That would be fun.
So, I mean, that is something I guess we can bring up is that I would still like to work on that plan. I know Amy was going to help with, maybe finding a few other locations for upcoming meetings and setting that up for maybe a trial period in the evening instead of in the morning and see if we have better participation. So we can try to get a plan together before the end of the year and maybe launch it at the beginning of next year. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Don, for remembering. I appreciate it.
As you know, I think we usually cancel them over the holidays anyway, because everybody's got everything going on over the holidays. So we don't.
Anybody else have something to bring up?
I do. I just wanted to say, in honor of Indigenous Day, I just wanted a land acknowledgement of the city of Sheridan on Arapaho and Cheyenne land, and just wanted to kind of give that out.
to them and send a special prayer out to the indigenous ancestors of this land.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Okay, I don't see anything. Then we will adjourn for tonight. Time is 7:41 PM. I think
43.
7:43. I can't see. There's a glare from here. Okay, as long as the clerk's got it.